Hey there, dear ones. We have an amazing episode for you today. And our guest is Sarah Caracciolo. And she is actually a winner of a Share the Love podcast competition that I held a few months ago, whereby the grand prize winner won a guest spot on Soul Guide Radio. And this is truly the best prize I could possibly give. So, for future podcast competitions, hey, this is a big prize. So be on the lookout for those. And if you enter, you could win a potential guest spot on my dear podcast, Soul Guide Radio. And today, Sarah and I are talking about spiritual initiations, and it's such a powerful conversation. But before we get into any of that, I would love to share with you a listener review. And this review comes from Joshua Gruber, and he's talking about the podcast episode titled It's All Just So Weird. And we'll link to that episode if you haven't had a chance to check it out. And he says, "What a beautiful episode." Thank you, Joshua. I've always been nervous to share some of my spiritual experiences, but now I know that my experiences may be what someone needs to hear. Yes, they do. Allison always finds a way to make these concepts easily accessible to everyone, no matter where you are on your journey. So extremely grateful. And Joshua, I'm so extremely grateful for you. Thank you for this feedback. It truly is what I try to do in this podcast and in the work I do as a spiritual interpreter, to take these profound concepts and translate them into something that's easy to understand and integrate into your experience, which is what we're going to be doing today. Sarah and I talk about a lot of big spiritual concepts and we break them down into how it worked out in our lives. We talk about motherhood, we talk about our struggles, and we talk about our growth and evolution in ways that are in service to you. So let's get to it. In today's episode, Sarah and I talk about how motherhood and other big life changes are actually spiritual initiations, why initiations are often jarring or intense, and how to tap into and amplify your intuition during these big life experiences. We'll end on an invitation that will have you embracing your spiritual initiations to receive all the amazing downloads and awareness your higher self is trying to send you. So please stay with us until the end. Hello. We're creating a global community of soul guided leaders, coaches, healers, and entrepreneurs called the Soul Guide Circle. In the Soul Guide Circle, we're inviting in our spiritual gifts to get our clients even more results and transformation and create massive referral buzz. Find a link to join our closed Facebook group at allisonscampbell.com or in the show notes. Today's guest is Sarah Caracciolo. She is a holistic postpartum coach and intuitive healer who helps mamas heal and recover from postpartum insomnia, anxiety, and depression. She's a certified Martha Beck life coach and equus coach, Reiki master, and has her degree in psychology. Sarah uses her intuitive abilities and skills to help her clients heal at a root level. We had an absolutely amazing conversation exploring a variety of spiritual topics. Please enjoy. Hello, Sarah. Welcome to Soul Guide Radio.
Hi, Allison. It's so nice to see you.
Yay, I'm so happy. Sarah and I have known each other for a long time. I think we initially got connected through the Martha Beck tribe.
Yeah, yep, I
Yeah.
think so. You were in the master training, and I met you through like one of the courses you were offering to like the other MBI coaches.
Oh, that's right. Wow. That's
Yeah,
really
you were
cool.
doing it was awesome because you were doing the work, but you did it in your own way because you like added something else to the work. And I was like, oh, I like this. It adds like this other layer to it.
It was EFT.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, okay.
I love that. That is like, you make me think, like, even today, after all, this is like, we're talking like 10 years ago. You and I have known each other a
Yeah.
long time. Maybe not
Yeah.
quite 10, but like maybe like 8 years ago. Um, and like, those are still the most powerful practices.
I still do them to this day. To this day, the work is one of it was a tool that, like, changed my life, and it's still something I come back to just keep moving the needle forward, you know?
Absolutely, I'm the same way, and, with all the energy work I do and I really find that it works, like, when I'm up in my head, blaming
Yeah,
something on somebody else, and then I pause, and in the work, Byron Katie teaches you how to really identify the limiting thoughts and then turn them around to the different perspectives. So if you
right.
think, "My husband isn't listening to me," if you turn it around to the self, "I'm not listening to me," and I always find that turning it around to the self
Mhm,
always is like, "Aha.
mhm,
Oh, yeah, I'm not listening to myself, am I?" Or whatever the
mhm.
example is.
I know, it's so powerful, I love it, and yeah, I just love that that's how we met, you know, and, how we've both evolved in, like, different ways, and it's just wild how life just continues on, you know what I mean? And we yeah, so I'm just so glad to be here and chat about, yeah, motherhood and the I think the spiritual initiation that I experienced while or when I became a mom, and then how it just really upped the ante when it came to me doing the inner work and, like, healing on, like, a really soul level. Like, I thought I was, like, I've been on this path for, yeah, over 10 years, and I was like, "I got it." Like, I've done the work, I'm a coach, I'm I feel like I got to this, like, plateau, if you will, of, like, "I'm good," and then you become a mom and they talk about baby blues, you know? "Oh, you might experience some baby blues." Okay, didn't really think anything of it. I was like, "Oh, I've been depressed in my day, like, okay, I can handle that," you know? And then, yeah, becoming a mom just flipped everything around, and I feel like I had to start at ground 0. And you were with me in some of those, like, really hard moments because of the sleep stuff that I was going through. So, while it sucked going through all of that, I feel like it really helped me heal at, like, a soul level, and, like, my intuition just got so strong, you know? So I
Yeah.
guess we're just gonna dive right in.
I love diving right in. Yeah, and, I love this topic because I do think that motherhood is such an initiation, and there's lots of different ways to mother. So if you don't have a biological child, there's so many different ways we are initiated into that motherhood of caretaking for something that's vulnerable or precious or needs help. Um, and this is such a personal topic for me because I definitely believe, although I never really got it diagnosed until about a year later, and the therapist said, "Oh, it is likely that you had post-traumatic, uh, 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 how do I say that? PTSD,
PTSD.
postpartum PTSD." Yeah, because
Right,
I had a very, very traumatic birth. And then my traumatic birth was also, and this is, I think, a lot of us have this without realizing it, it was triggering a lot of past lifetime trauma around
mhm.
birthing and losing
Right,
children in past lifetimes. So
right,
it's horrible in your current lifetime, but you're also, like, poking
right,
the bear of trauma that's so big inside of you and you don't even
right,
realize it. And then you have this little life form that you have to care for and you're not sleeping. And none of us really have, in the modern world, we don't live in clans and tribes and extended
right,
families. So you can just pass the baby off to the auntie or the sister when you need to sleep. I mean, I know you
right.
didn't have that, Sarah, and I sure as hell didn't have that.
No, I didn't have that, and you know what's interesting is elephants, they breastfeed for 6 years, and I was like, "No way," but it makes sense. It's like they're born I don't think they're called a pod, but, like, the elephant is
They're
born
called
into
families, I think.
yeah, so you have, like, the uncles and the aunts and the cousins and the siblings, and they're all caretaking for the young. Here we are, like, on our own individual streets, in our own individual home, away from everyone, trying to, like, do it all, and it's actually impossible because I feel like our biology is to be in community and to be in tribes, and it's like we can get back there, but it's going to take so many generations to build the tribe. So, like, you hear it, like, "We have to build the tribe." Well, it's not gonna happen overnight, and, like, it's going to take time, and it's kind of like, in a sense our responsibility to do that, which is like, wow, let's just add something else to our plates that we have to do as new moms, you know? Um, so it's just like, yeah, it's just different than how we used to mother, you know? And I think that's part of it. I also think what I learned was that we all go through this thing called matrescence, which is it's like as dramatic of a change as adolescence. Okay, so you know how we talk about adolescence, like, it's a hard time in most people's life, right? Like, "Who am I? What do I want?" You're like 15, 16, the hormones are crazy. It's like, for me, that was one of the hardest times in my life, right? And then matrescence is when you become a mother, and it's like as drastic of a change, physiological change, emotional change, physical change that a person will go through in their life and no one talks about it. You're like, "Why do I feel crazy?" "Oh, because my brain is literally changing and I'm not who I used to be, and there's so many changes that are going on in our bodies that we're not aware of, and there's not a lot of talk about it, right? So I think if we talk about it more of like, "Oh, this is a thing called matrescence. It takes like 3 years to feel like yourself again." Don't think that we would internalize our suffering, the anxiety, the depression, whatever we're experiencing, and make ourselves wrong. We would just be like, "Oh, this is part of the process. How can I support myself in this time?" Do you know what I mean?
I absolutely do, and it is such an important topic because I remember after I had Freya and I was processing the this PTSD from the birth itself, um, I wrote about it. At that time, I and actually that's when I was going through Martha Beck's master
Right.
certification program, and at that point in time, the program had a lot of writing. I think Martha was in her writing books phase, so of course, you wanna teach what you're into. So she
Right.
was doing a lot of, like, writing, 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 and writing your vulnerable stories. So at that point in time, I was like, "Alright, the most vulnerable ass thing I can talk about by far is the birth of my child that really just did everything you talked about to me." It just threw me in this place that I can't believe, and I had Freya a little bit later in life. I was 40 years old, and I'm like, "I can't believe I'm a 40-year-old woman, and I'm like, I'm just paralyzed right now."
Right.
So I wrote about that, and I wrote some pretty damn good articles about it. I'll link got published in the Elephant Journal, and I'll link in the show notes for
Mm.
anyone who might be interested in it. But, some of the publications that I submitted to, which were publications for, pregnant mothers or new mothers, they wouldn't publicize it because they didn't want to, quote, "scare new moms."
Mm.
And I said to them, "But this is what I wanted to know."
Right.
I went in blind to this pregnancy about what could happen. I was so
Right.
unprepared, and I read the books, and I went to the meetings, and I went to the classes, and I was like, "I was so unprepared for this birth trauma or this huge change you're talking about. So let's
Right.
talk about it." And I was so upset when they were like, "Nope, we're not gonna know." Like, and it was like a door. It wasn't even like a "we pass." It was like slam door in face,
Oh,
don't come back.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, and I always ask myself this, like, okay, when I was pregnant, I had a lot of fear around giving birth, right? So like I had to process a lot of that. I had to do a lot of coaching and just like process this fear. But I didn't have the space to know like how to prepare for motherhood. Do you know what I mean? Like the only thing that I got from my midwives was, "Oh, you may experience baby blues." So then while you're talking, I'm like, "Yes, and how do we prepare moms? And do we? And can they take that on?" Do you know what I mean? Like, are they able to take that on? And what could they take on? Because I feel like, yeah, had I been a little bit more prepared, I guess I just need to ask myself this, like, what would have helped me feel more prepared? Because the last thing I thought I was going to experience was postpartum insomnia. Like, I was such a good sleeper. I never thought about sleep up until giving birth. And then because I wasn't sleeping a lot, I got anxiety about not sleeping. And it turned into this whole thing that I'm still healing from, you know? So it's like, I guess that's the question. Like, how do we prepare mothers for something that, like, we just don't know what's going to happen, and they're holding so much for, like, the birth, you know? but I think that we can do a better job. Do you know what I mean?
I do, and there is something about not there is a thing about let's not scare the new mothers, like,
Mm.
that's a thing, and I didn't wanna be scared when I was a new mother, but I think it's just this, Sarah, it's just telling
Yeah,
our stories,
I
just
agree.
sharing our stories, and, like, we all know that every mother goes into motherhood differently and experiences something
Right,
different. You had the postpartum insomnia, I had the postpartum PTSD. My
right,
sister, who's had other things in her life, she flowed into motherhood like the biggest breeze. Breastfeeding was no problem. She was like Mother Earth. Just
right,
1 minute I'm working full time, and the next minute I'm a mom and I'm doing it all. It was so easy for her. Like she just and I had the most opposite experience that she had. It was such a
right,
jarring transition for me, but there's other things in my life that has been so easeful for me and
right.
so difficult for her. So I kind
That's what I
of
was
feel like
gonna ask you. Why do you
yeah,
think some people have harder experiences and some people have easier experiences? Because I can find myself being like, trying to hold space for new moms, and that's what I love doing. And some of my friends are like, "I'm good. Like, I don't I like this is easy." And I'm like, "What?" Like,
yeah,
I'm so confused.
I know. It is true. I just think it's our core wounds, right? I think this is
Mhm,
such a spiritual conversation. It gets down to core wounds. And like I know I had a lot of past lifetime trauma around birth, around
mhm,
losing children at young ages, around myself not having the kind of birth that I wanted to have.
mhm.
Um, yeah, and so I think it was one of my definitely the birth of Freya was a huge soul contract I had. So a soul
Yeah.
contract is just something you agreed to on a soul level that you needed to experience. It's almost always a challenge. And usually
Mhm.
the bigger soul contracts are the bigger challenges, something
Right,
you meant to confront, heal from, grow from, learn from, so that you can evolve to the next level of your potential. And I
right,
think those of us who really had this sort of big initiating experience into motherhood, it is highly likely we have a soul contract around
right.
it all.
I agree. And what do you think, like, if someone is going through, an initiation? For me, it just feels like, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too. It's like, I know I'm going through initiation, and when I'm in it, I don't really know I'm in it. But when I'm kind of on out of it, or I can see it from afar, and I'm like, that was really fucking hard. Like, that was intense. That almost killed me. I feel like that those are like initiations, right? For me. So I guess my question for you is like, okay, what's an initiation? How do you know you're going through initiation? And if someone is going through initiation and they're like, well, I don't know, maybe I did have a past life, maybe this is a soul contract. Like, how can they start inquiring within to like maybe be re- have like that revealed to them? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so how I describe initiations, I put it in the context of energetic growth. And when we go through accelerated periods of energetic growth, it's like a growth spurt, right? Of our energy, of our soul, a growth spurt of our soul, if you will. There's almost always an initiation in there. There is, not almost always, there is always an initiation in there. An initiation is usually confronting a big fear, going through a big experience, a big catalytic event. And the big initiations usually have a jarring feeling to them, like
Hmm.
I know we both had this sort of jar I felt so jarred into motherhood, it's like such a good word
Yes.
for it, I was just jarring. Amazing, awesome, the best thing ever, like, we haven't talked
Right.
about that, but, like,
Right.
okay,
Yes.
the
Yes.
blanket statement is it's, the best thing to happen, right? So, for anyone who is out there thinking about children and haven't had kids yet, like,
Have
truly
we
honest,
scared you
we
yet?
just have to say it. We have to say it, right, Sarah? Like, I think about it, like, Freya is, like I think about my life without Freya, and I always think, "Well, that would be meaningless." Like, this is my experience, right? So
Mhm.
you can be a person without kids and have a super, super meaningful life, but, like, the point is Freya has brought so much meaning to my life, and
Yes.
so, 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 so worth it, right?
So worth it. Yes. I
Yeah.
like yes, 100
Yes. So
times. And it can be both and.
yes, and it can be both and
Mhm.
usually our biggest challenges are where we've had our biggest happiness and bliss, like, not always, but often, especially, like, on these, like, sort of initiations, you will sometimes the challenge is just a shitty challenge, but you will oftentimes find in this initiation, It's both wonderful and horrible at the same time, or aspects of it
Mm,
are wonderful and aspects are horrible at the same time, and it's this jarring
mhm,
thing.
right,
Usually, you haven't had too much time to prepare for it.
right,
Usually, your spirit
mhm,
guides or your higher self, so if you have quite a connection to the higher self or a spirit guide or source, they usually don't give you too much heads up. I mean, I'm a
right,
psychic medium, and I went to my divine guidance team after the birth of Freya, and I said, "What the F?
mhm,
Why didn't you warn me that this was gonna be so hard?" And they were like, "This is just I think that's part of the initiation. You don't get a lot of prep for it. It is a sort
right.
of it's a zap."
Yeah, it's so funny because I was listening to this podcast, and I love that you share that because this woman was like, she had her second kid, and she was like very intuitive at a small age, and then she got very, like, if you can't prove it, it's not real, right? And got very, like, left brain, and then when she became a mom, it came back online. And then when she had her second kid, she's like, "I knew something was going to happen, like, I just felt like this was gonna change my life, like, having the second kid was gonna change my life," and she had an NDE when she gave birth to her second kid,
Uh,
and it was like and then that just, like what she was saying, she's like, "And I just gave birth, and I had this baby in my arms, and the only thing that was coming through was, like, all of these messages about how I'm meant to, like, serve my soul's purpose and, like, what the messages is, and I got all these downloads," and she's like, "I'm supposed to be just, like, loving my baby, and I just have all these, like, this is what you're meant to do in this lifetime. You need to start doing it. This is your soul's purpose. Start now," and just got all of these downloads. I was like, "Wow, that's amazing." Like, yeah, it just, like, has me kind of thinking, well, this is, like, going way off topic, but I just feel like when I also became a mom, I was like I put so much pressure on myself to be successful before I became a mom, and then when I did become a mom, I was like, "I don't have the bandwidth or the capacity to put any energy into my business right now. Like, this is taking everything I have to just, like, be okay mentally, emotionally, and to take care of my kid." But I did have a bunch of downloads, like, when it came to postpartum insomnia and anxiety and holding mother circles and holding space for moms, and, like, I feel like that is what I'm being called to do. But I guess my question what my the question that's coming up for me now is like, okay, so when people get downloads, this is what I'm meant to do. This is my calling. How come some people have, like, this, like, huge push to do it and, like, they put it into the world and you, like and 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 they do it, they put it into the world, and some people choose not to, or they do it, but they don't get the results that they want. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like we all have our purpose here. I feel like we all get downloads. I feel like we all know why we're meant to be here in this moment in time. It can always change. And so we have this like soul's purpose. But I think for some people, including myself, it's not linear. It's not like this linear thing that like, oh, I have this soul purpose. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it out into the world. There's so many things that can happen when you start actually putting your work into the world, the self-doubt and the resistance. And like, I would actually rather go hiking than do work, like the consistency. There's so many things. So I guess I'm just so curious, like, yeah, what do you see? Like, we all have these like messages, and some people are more successful in getting them out into the world than others, which is no hate on anyone. I just see this in myself and in clients. So I would love to hear your perspective. This is very off
yeah.
topic, but
I don't think it is actually. I think of the thread, it's all threading together, and I think we'll segue nicely into intuition, and awakening intuition through motherhood and other initiations in your life. I think it starts that there's several ways to respond to that. I think it starts with human design.
mm,
In that, you and I are both projectors. We have open
mhm,
sacrals. If you read anything on projectors, the first thing they say is if you're a mom who's a projector, get help. You are not like Ma Ingalls on the prairie. caring for 5 kids, you know, feeding the animals, like, just going all day. Sorry, that's fresh on my brain because I'm reading these books to my daughter, and I'm like, "My god, Ma Ingalls, she was a rock star." Like, we are just not designed for that, right? And
I'm
we
not
need
designed
help.
for that.
No!
Yeah.
We need help, especially any open sacral folk. So manifestors, projectors, reflectors, we are just designed to help. Now, generators and manifesting generators, you are also designed for help, but you may find that you have more consistent access to energy to get through the long nights of, early
Mhm.
days of motherhood and all that stuff. So, my point in saying that is, like you were talking about, like, I was just in survival mode when I had my baby, and I was too. And I think part of that is projector energy. Like, we literally cannot be like, "Oh, I had a baby and now I'm just gonna keep running my business and raise my baby and do all my thing." Like, my sister's a generator. She just went to back to work and it was all just like, she was going and it was all so good. And I just had this sort of shutdown. And I'm like, "Okay, I can only take one thing at a time." And once I figure out the baby thing, then and maybe then, and I don't know, I'll think about adding work on too. And that's the beauty of running your own business, and thank God I had a partner that allowed me the luxury of even having
Right.
that choice and
Exactly.
conversation, so
Right.
I feel very blessed. Um, and so the point of me mentioning all this is a lot of our human design types, some of us just have more waiting. And some of us,
Mm.
like got the 6 line. I don't really like step into my role modelhood until I'm 50. I turn 50 next year. So I'm like,
Mm.
if you're a 6 line, you're likely not going to be a super big success at a young age. Or if you are, it's not aligned success. You will not experience aligned success until you're later in your 50s and even your 60s, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of us just have this waiting and this divine timing. We've
Mhm.
got the downloads, but it's
Mhm.
just not the right time to act.
Mhm.
And I will say, sometimes we can see on social media, someone's like, "Yeah, I got these downloads and now I'm doing it and I'm fulfilling my soul mission and it's also awesome." And then maybe that's true, but
Right.
maybe that's just a lot of social media sort of flash. And then other of us are doing things in subtle ways and it's showing up subtly in our life here and with our spouse and with our family. And it's actually much bigger than we are
Yeah.
giving it credit.
Yeah. I agree, and I feel like I said before, I became a mom, I define success in a specific way, and now it's like success is like it's like, do I feel happy when I wake up? Do I feel at peace with myself? Am I getting along with my husband? Am I connecting to the trees when I go into nature? Like, do I feel fulfilled in a way that I'm connecting to my intuition and my, yeah, intuitive nature on a daily basis that really fills me up? You know what I mean? It's like, am I spending time with friends? Do I have quality friendships that like are meaningful to me? And I think it went out of the ego of like, this is what success looks like. I need to make X amount of money by X amount of time. I need to manifest everything on my fucking vision board. Like, oh my God, if I hear that one more time, I'm going to lose my shit. But like, and now it became just of like, how do I want to feel in my being? And I feel like that will come back of like putting effort into my business again. But I have 2 days of childcare, you know what I mean? So, like, on those days, what do I wanna do? Like, spend time with horses and go on a hike or work? Which I love my work, but it's like every week is different. And I think just checking in with myself every week and knowing that I can change my mind. Maybe today I do wanna record a video for YouTube because that feels inspiring, and maybe tomorrow I'll go on a hike, but, like, being able to change my mind and knowing that I will change my mind and to continue to check in with myself about like what actually is going to fulfill me. Do you know what I mean? So it's actually a blessing becoming a mother because that whole like pressure of being successful, it actually like went into raising my child. And so I'm like, I don't have the capacity to do both. And like this actually feels fulfilling and I'm okay with it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. I just feel called to share. I just had a session with a client yesterday, and she's gonna be 77 in a few months.
Wow.
Yeah, yay. And
Amazing.
she's been plagued her whole life, and she got it from her mom and her former husband about, like, you're not essentially, you're not enough. You're failing. You know, they were all measuring success by how much money you made and how many because and she's been trying to become a coach and let's say the last 5, maybe 10 years, but before that, she was a therapist. So she's been at this, for a long time. Even when she was a therapist, the her husband's like, "Well, you're not making enough money, you don't have enough clients," and it was just never enough. So she had so much
Mm,
wounding around that. So I've done a lot we've just done so much healing around it. And what I've seen, and she's been a long-term client of mine, and I just absolutely love her to bits. What I've seen in her in the last year has just been extraordinary. She's found
mm,
love. She's repairing relationships with her son. She has found a church. She's singing. I'm kind of outing her identity right now.
I love
um,
that.
sharing a lot
Oh, I
about
don't
her,
know
but
her. Yeah.
she wouldn't mind. She totally wouldn't mind. She's singing. She's a leader in her church. She has this friendship circle. She's going to the gym. She's lost weight. But our last session yesterday, she was like, "I don't have clients. I'm failing."
Mm,
So the first thing we did was heal all the bullshit around I'm failing.
right.
Then I asked her, "Do you actually want a client?" She's also a projector, by the way.
Right.
I said, "Do you actually want a client right now? You've got a church thing. You've got your new romantic partner. You've got family. You've got grandkids. Do you actually want clients right now?" And she said, "No, I don't. But I may." And I said, "Yes, you may." She said, "I've done all this work. I feel like I have all this to give, la, la, la." And I think, yes, all of that. But it's okay not to want clients right now and not to have them and be
Mhm,
super, super successful.
mhm,
Just check in with yourself. Give yourself permission to have no clients right now and not pursue clients right now. And
mhm.
usually when we're not pursuing clients is when they just land in our laps,
Right,
right?
right.
And I said, check in September, check in
Yeah,
October, and then ask yourself, how many do I want? One,
right,
two,
right, right.
right?
And whose agenda like, I love that question of like, well, do you actually want clients? Because it's like, whose agenda are we trying to like, what agenda, whose agenda is it? Is it ours or is it society's or is it something you see on social media? Like, because I feel like so often it's actually not ours, it's like what we've just taken on. And I feel like that question is so powerful because it's like, well, what do you actually want? And like when you and if you do want clients, that's great, but what are we making it mean? Do you know what I mean? Well, if we have clients, then we're this, and we don't have clients, we're that. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know. I just think that's so it is so 3D. Do you know what I mean? Because it's the ego's way of like staying in control. And I feel like when we like go into like love, which is this is the question I've asked myself so many times throughout the last 3 years when I was really in the, like, deepest, darkest days of postpartum insomnia. I was like, "What would love say to me?" And I don't whenever I ask myself that, it's like it's such a kind and loving response, and the answers always they always just lead me to exactly what I need in that moment, which isn't like, "You need to have this and this and this by X, Y, and Z, da, 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 da." It's like, it's so loving and kind. Did you know what I mean? So I love that you asked that question, like, "What do you want?" And, like, what would, like, love say to you right now if you're really in a hard time and you're putting pressure on yourself, or if you're newly into motherhood or you're just, like, having a hard time in general, like, what would love say to you? You know?
I love that question. And, getting back to this client, I'm sure the voice in her head was that of her mom and
Yeah.
her late husband saying, "You need clients to
Right.
be worthy," right? Because
Right.
that's our litmus test. And this 3D
Yeah.
metrics is client success, no client's not success.
Right.
And then when she released that and got to the question of what would love call for you, the answer was hanging out with my new partner, doing
Yeah.
my church event that I'm leading, singing, hanging out with friends, being with my family this summer,
I love
continuing to
that.
repair the relationship with my son. I mean, what's more meaningful than that, really?
I know.
So it was just beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. And then, like, how cool to experience that when you're 77, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's just like we're always evolving and we're always growing and there's so much more to like uncover about ourselves, you know? I keep saying, I'm like, okay, I think I got it. Like, I think I'm good with Earth. Okay. Like, all right, let's just check off all the lessons and everything I need to learn. And like, I think I'm good for a bit, you know?
Totally, totally. Well, I think, like, they talk about our different initiations in life, motherhood for sure, turning 50, the Chiron return. I'm about to hit that. And I'm like, oh, I hope my initiation is an easeful one because I'm just not in the mood for a big jarring
Is the
something or
Chiron
rather.
return similar as like the Saturn return when you're 27 to it's like 20 to 30? Is it
I
similar or no?
I think
Chiron is the
so.
wounded healer, right?
Yeah. So the Chiron return, I think, is like, it is it's also an intuition boost. That
Mm,
Crohn's wisdom, the wisdom of the wise woman, you
right.
do get an intuitive boost through Chiron return, and I think it's kinda like your last, like and, astrologers, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that it's one of the last big sort of resets,
Mm,
resetting you to your soul mission, the work I'm here to do, the person I'm here to be, so that you kind of like as you finish your
mm,
life cycle, you have this, like, last reset towards that. So if you're really
interesting.
out of alignment to it, which I'm totally not, I'm, like, so in alignment,
Right.
maybe it'll be not a big reset, but I think for some people who are I think about, maybe my mom, when she
Right.
went through it, like, when you get quite out of alignment, it can be you
Right.
can get jarred back into alignment.
Right. Yeah. No,
Um,
I agree. Yeah, well, I don't agree. I don't know. I'm not 50 yet, but
I
I will
know,
see.
and
You'll have to let me know how it happened.
I have to do more, research into Chiron return because I'm knocking on its door, and I'm a 6 line, so this if you're a 6 line in human design, it's kind of turning 50 is kind of a big, like, you become it's when you really step into the role model work. So,
Interesting. I love
yeah.
that. I
I
heard
forgot, what's your profile lines? Do you remember? No,
I
no
have
worries.
no idea what my human design is.
No worries.
Yeah, that's also one thing I threw out after I became a mom. I was like really into astrology and all this stuff. And I was like, I don't have a bandwidth to even like be with this right now, you know? But my friend
Totally.
Erin said that every 7 years, and tell me if you agree with this, every 7 years, there's like a spiritual upgrade. Or wait, is it every 7 years? No, is it every 7 years that your DNA or your cells regenerate? Or she was saying basically saying, like, every 7 years, I'm totally botching this, you go through another, yeah, spiritual upgrade. So, like,
Yeah.
is that right?
That's right. Yeah, every 7 years, I think your whole body is completely regenerated in terms of, like, old skin falling off, new skin, like, you're, like, a completely regenerated person, like, about every 7 years, um,
Okay.
and that also physically, and then that
Right.
resets you energetically.
Right. Yeah.
I've heard that, I don't know a whole lot about it, but it seems to make sense to me. Um But what I would love to kind of, go into, and then we can kind of wind our lovely episode down, which I've having just an amazing time chatting with you about this, um, to talk about this intuition, and when we do get these boosts of intuition, when we go through motherhood and other initiating experiences in our lives. So how did you experience that, um, a boost in intuition, or how would you even describe that sort of awakening of any of your spiritual gifts through the
Yeah.
process of becoming.
Um, well, before I became a mom, I think I've always been intuitive. Like, I'm a very highly sensitive person, so I'm very, like, in touch with, well, I was, and then I wasn't, and then I became more in touch with myself after I did all this work. But I think I've always been in touch with my intuition. I think when I started trying to become pregnant, um, I was in a mystery school for 3 years, and that really helped me. And then while I was trying to become pregnant, it wasn't easy for me. It took me, like, a year and a half, and my sister and I are 2 years apart, and she went through her own journey with IVF, and so, it was really hard that first year and a half of, like, trusting that I knew I was gonna get pregnant because I felt it, but then every month seeing a negative sign or yeah, not positive. And so when I did become pregnant, it was this I want to share the story because this really leads up to like what helped me really tune into my intuition in like a stronger way. Because I feel like when you wanna become pregnant, it's an emotional roller coaster, especially if it takes a long time, and right now, infertility is just, like, skyrocketing, which is just so heartbreaking, and so, a lot of people are going through this really hard time of trying to become pregnant. So, for me, it took us, like, a year and a half, and my sister was doing IVF, and we always wanted to be pregnant together, and I it I was like, "Okay, well, we're not getting pregnant naturally, so maybe I'll do this thing called IUI." It's like the fertility treatment you do before IVF, right? It's not I correct me if I'm wrong, everyone who's listening. It's not as invasive, it's less expensive, it's just like, "Let's just see if this works." So, I was meant to take hormones, and I really didn't wanna take hormones because I'm so sensitive, and I'm really conscious about what I put into my body because I feel like all the negative effects of everything, right? But I had come to this place of acceptance of like, "Okay, if this is how I'm gonna get pregnant, I'm willing to take the hormones." So, I'm at this retreat in Seattle, and I'm meant to take the hormones the next day, and my sister's doing her IVF retrieval so that we're actually coinciding, and so if I do get pregnant this way, we'll be pregnant together. So I'm meditating, and I'm like, "Okay, let me just check with my body. I'm taking the hormones tomorrow, like, what is my intuition saying?" And I just saw this giant red X over my pelvis, and I was like, "Fuck." I was like, "Is this me overthinking it? Is this me, like, not wanting to take the hormones? Am I getting in my own way? Like, what's happening?" Went to retreat. Next morning, I'm like, "Okay, I've gotta take these hormones, like, the procedure is happening in a week, like, I've gotta start taking these hormones." So I meditated, sat down, and I was like, "All right, guys, like, body, what's going on? Tell me what I need to do." And I just saw this giant red X over my pelvis again. And I was like, "Damn it." I was like, "All right, I'm not taking the hormones. I'm not doing the procedure, and I'm not taking the hormones." I called my sister, she's crying, I'm crying. This was the plan, it's not gonna happen. So fast forward, 2 weeks later, we're in California. My sister's doing her IVF transfer, which is like when you transfer the embryos, within the next 2 weeks if you're get pregnant or not. So she's doing that. I start spotting. I think I'm getting my period. I'm really bummed out. I'm like, okay, the stars just aren't aligned. Like, we're not going to be pregnant together. It's okay. 2 weeks later, I get home and I still haven't gotten my period. And I'm like, that's weird. Like, I'm 5 days late. I'm never late. And so I make my husband take a pregnancy test. And long story short, I got pregnant naturally that same month, and my sister also got pregnant simply by me listening to like that red X. Do you know? Like I knew what my intuition was telling me, and I could have just ignored it and been like, "No," but, like, I listened to it, and I got pregnant naturally that same month, and so my sister got pregnant or through IVF, so our boys are 6 days apart. So that was, like that whole period before becoming a mom was actually the initiation period of, like, strengthening my intuition because I knew I was gonna get pregnant, but it wasn't happening, and I think that's so hard for a lot of people. It's like, it's not happening in the material world yet. So then we start doubting ourselves. But intuitively, we know that it's going to happen. And so it's like building that trust within ourselves, right? And then after I went through the postpartum insomnia stuff, I just went through like a dark night of the soul many times. And I feel like when you go through a dark night of the soul, because I wasn't sleeping, I had so much anxiety, I was a new mom, it was really, really challenging. I Something just happens inside of you. Like, it's like you have to hit rock bottom to unlock something within yourself. Do you know what I mean? And, like, at the time, I didn't know it, but I think going through those dark nights of the soul, it's like I didn't have the capacity or bandwidth to do anything, like I said, aside from take care of my mental health and my child. And when everything else is just like there's no distractions, there's nothing else to distract you from what you're experiencing, like, I had to go through that experience. And I think going through all those emotions and not sleeping and just being in that way with myself. I mean, there's so many different phases of the healing that I went through that led me to where I am today, which I won't go into now, but I think when you go through a dark night of the soul, it unlocks something within you. You remember, You know what I mean? Like, you remember who you are. Does that make sense?
Totally. Such a beautiful story. I didn't know your boys were 6 days apart. That
Yeah,
is
6 days
so
apart.
that is so amazing. What I love about this story is that you listen to that red X. I know a lot of my clients would have been like, "I see a red X, but it's probably just my mind playing tricks, and I don't know, and I'm not gonna trust it." And you trusted it. Sometimes the divine isn't speaking to you in very specific words that you just, they're the divine doesn't always talk to you like you and I are talking to each other now, Sarah, right? They talk to you in red X's. And it's just
Right, yeah, I
about
never get words. I get images, like, I'm, like, more like that. I get, like, images, you know?
and you trusted it. You
Right.
surrendered. And that, like, you get so much credit for that because it really did, like, it led you to this aligned place that you're meant to be. And it is true, like, you had these soul contracts, you were following your higher self, and with every dark night of the soul you had, you came out of it, and you came out stronger, and you came out, really with another calling to how you feel called to help others and to help other
Yeah.
mothers. I mean, you came to me and said, "Hey, Allison, I have this idea for a podcast episode." And I was like, "This is amazing." And this is not something I normally talk about, but this very topic that you suggested affected me deeply in my life. So it's
Mhm.
just like it's such a gift you're giving others that you can only really give this gift as powerfully as you do if you've been there. If
Right.
you've said, "I did that, I experienced that, I tasted that." We can read all we want in books, and that's great.
Yeah,
I love someone who's read a lot of books and that is gonna give me
right.
advice. But when you've been there down in those trenches and then have come out the other side, it doesn't mean you have it all figured out. It doesn't mean you don't have your hard days, but you're in this higher level. I mean, when you give that to others, it's just the most priceless thing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, and that's what I love doing is just holding space for moms because I think so often, like, we want in our society, we're conditioned to give advice or to try to fix it. And the thing is like I believe that all the answers are within us. And when we hold space for mothers or anyone who's going through a challenging time, and we hold loving, kind space just like horses do, right? When you're with horses, you immediately feel all the feelings you haven't felt, or you just feel safe being your true vulnerable self. When we can hold space for that, space like that for mothers and people who are going through hard times, the answers come from within themselves. Like they actually know what to do. They just need the space to be held for them. And we don't have space being held for us. Do you know what I mean? There's like so much information coming at us that it's so hard to listen to our intuition. So that's why I love doing these mother circles and holding space for moms because when we have the space, when we're given the space, we actually can connect to our intuition in a new way and we can build upon that and that we start trusting ourselves more and more and we don't need to like start looking for the answers outside of ourselves. They're actually here. And the more that we attune to our intuition and build that muscle, it's like you have, like, you have like, um, it just feels like I have friends or like I have support within me. Do you know what I mean? It's like I just call on myself to find the answers. Do you know what I mean? And like obviously I have a coach and a therapist and like whatever, but it's just without it, I don't know where I'd be, honestly.
It's such an important point. We have this internal guidance system, we have our higher self, we have this intuition that's giving us guidance, right? And inviting us to turn right instead of left, and it provides us with support, it holds us. It doesn't
Mhm.
just give us the guidance for how to move forward, it holds us as we move forward, and I think it's very easy when we're in our human experience and that we're in the challenge and we feel like the humans around us aren't understanding or reaching out or holding the space for us or even just really hearing us. Um, it can feel so isolating and so lonely. And people, getting back to human design, if you've got any individual circuitry in your human design, and most light workers do, and it
Mhm.
just means that you're kind of meant to be a bit of a lone wolf It doesn't mean you're an introvert, it doesn't mean whatever, but it kinda means you're really blazing your own trail and you're on your own a lot in your life, and it can feel very the upshot is this energy tends to kinda like to be a lone wolf and blaze the new trail, and that's very exciting, but the shadow is you feel freaking lonely, and you don't
Mhm.
have that support in that community. I have all individual circuitry in my chart, so I'm kinda really speaking from experience here,
Mm.
but I just notice whenever I just, like, feel that loneliness, I'm like, "Okay, I'm not feeling it from humans these days. I
Mhm.
need to get this connection and this support and this space from my divine guidance team. And whenever I just take some deep breaths, release the loneliness, go into my heart space and call that in, I just get
Mhm.
enveloped with this feelings of connection and being supported and being held. And I realize like just like my intuition is always inside of me guiding me forward, so is this divine guidance team supporting me on
Right.
my path.
Right. Totally. Yeah. It's quite marvelous.
Anyway, Sarah, this has been such a marvelous conversation. I just could speak to you forever. You're such a
Same.
dear person in my world, and you're such a gift to the people you serve. I love to ask my guests to leave our listeners with an invitation, and then I'm going to ask you in a sec how they can find you. But I know you're a listener of the show, so an invitation is just to some homework, a perspective and inspiration anywhere you wish to invite our listeners to go.
Hmm. The first thing that came up is it's called a sit spot. So it's basically a spot in nature where you sit for a consecutive amount of days and you just notice your surroundings. So you check in with all five of your senses and you smell, you listen, you sense how you feel in your body, you taste, and then you open your eyes and it's just a beautiful invitation to be in nature and in your surroundings and notice what you see, what you sense. um, Simply being in nature and noticing what you sense can really just strengthen your intuitive abilities because the trees are healing, the rivers are healing. They're actually helping you heal all the time. And we're always healing, even if it doesn't feel like it. We're always healing. And so just getting out in nature and creating your own sit spot, yeah, could just be really healing for you if that's what you feel called to do.
I love this invitation because I'm recording this from my family farm in South Dakota, and I'm looking out the window now, and I'm just like, all you see is nature everywhere, and there's so many lovely sit spots in in this area. So I'm totally taking on this invitation in like today, starting today. So that is really beautiful. And I want to say, Sarah, from my heart, so much gratitude for you. Thank you so much for the work you do in the world and for sharing your wisdom today on Soul Guide Radio.
Thanks, Allison. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And I would love to thank you, dear listener, for tuning in. I'm so grateful for you each and every week. And if you're feeling so called, head on over to wherever it is you listen, hit subscribe, and leave us a review. If you listen on Spotify, you can comment on every episode. I will read your words on the air with lots of love and gratitude. And I forgot to ask Sarah how listeners can connect to her. So sorry about that. I'm going to talk about it right now. If you would like to connect to Sarah, you can find her at Instagram at Sarah Loves Happiness. That link will be in the show notes. And she's also sharing with you a free meditation to heal anxiety. You can also find that link in the show notes. And I really, really encourage you to check Sarah out because she offers some really, really great high vibe, loving, and connecting perspectives on social and in her newsletters. So check her out. Everything will be in the show notes. And as always, until next time, may your soul guide the way.